from teaching them in primary 5 and primary 6, let alone secondary school. So many experiments, many efforts, but we've got to raise the quality of upbringing for every child, including especially those who start with less. Then what happens when people enter the workforce? We have to do more to help the poor, do more to reduce inequalities, not just by saying things that sound right politically, but doing things that can work on a sustainable basis and really improve people's lives. We are quite unusual because our lower income households have seen a significant improvement in incomes in the last 5 years. Unusual amongst the countries that are in the same league as us. Hong Kong, Taiwan, of course Europe, Japan, the US, where there's been a decline in living standards. We've seen a significant improvement in the last 5 years. But there is a group at the very bottom, within the bottom 5%. In fact, we have 50,000 Singaporeans working full-time with less than $1,000 a month. It's about 3% of our resident workforce. Doesn't sound like a high percentage, but 50,000 is a big number. And we all know them. In all our constituencies, we meet them, we know them. We've got to do more to help them. How are we doing it? Swisei's progressive wage model, starting with cleaners, security guards, moving on to landscape workers, those who do the gardening and tend to our parks. That's one very important way. It's working well. And starting from 1st September this year, the cleaners, all cleaners, will have to be paid a minimum of $1,050, but with a progressive ladder on top of it. That's one way. But there's also, besides the progressive wage model, which is targeted at those sectors where there's cheap sourcing, don't forget workfare, which is a major innovation and which is the real alternative to the minimum wage in Singapore. Workfare is adding significantly to wages. For someone with $1,000 a month, most of them, if they're working full-time, are getting $150 to $250 extra every month through workfare. Those who are older get $250 to $300. They're paid quarterly, but that's what it amounts to every month. Very significant increase, workfare. Workfare, progressive wage model, skills upgrading, and making sure that there are jobs always available for Singaporeans. That's how we uplift everyone. And if we fail after some years, if we find that things are getting stuck, then we have to consider every alternative, whether it's a minimum wage or any other solution. But it is succeeding. Our approaches are succeeding, and very importantly, they're succeeding without losing jobs for older, low-skilled workers, because they are the ones who will be most vulnerable. If we go for a simple minimum wage strategy, they're the ones who are the most vulnerable. Our older, low-skilled workers who did not have the advantages of subsequent generations. They had little education. They were stuck in simple, low-paid jobs for most of their careers. They're the most vulnerable. By using workfare, where the government pays them on top of what the employer pays, by using the progressive wage model, worked out on a tripartite basis, we've made sure they don't lose their jobs. How much does it amount to? When you add up the different things we do, a very significant government intervention. I spoke at a recent rally about how for every $1 of tax that the low-income group pays, those who are in the bottom 10%, every $1 of tax they pay, they get $6 back in subsidies. What I didn't say then is how different it is today compared to just 10 years ago. That's $6 back for every $1 of tax they pay. $6 back through subsidized childcare, healthcare, workfare, all the subsidies. That $6 back is almost double what it was 10 years ago. Major shift. Major shift. Then what do we do about savings and retirement? Very important. It's not just when people are growing up and their working years, but how do we ensure that those who are poorer have a good retirement? We've increased our healthcare subsidies, and I'm not just talking about the pioneer generation, which is a special generation. On a permanent basis, we've increased our healthcare subsidies. But a critical improvement was what we have done to add to the savings of lower income Singaporeans through the CPF system. First, 2008, we increased CPF interest rates, extra interest. So today, more than half of CPF members get 3.5% on the ordinary account, 5% on the special account. But that's not all. That's not all. We also give a housing grant, and we also add part of your workfare into your savings, which earns the same interest. And when you add in all the subsidies we give through the CPF, the low-income worker today, based on our latest policies, will earn 6.5% on his ordinary account throughout his working life. 6.5%. Major subsidy. And after retirement, after 65, 6% interest rate. All this without them having to take any investment risk by investing on their own. It's guaranteed. They are assured that not only their money is safe, but the interest will be paid, because this is a AAA government. The CPF system is not perfect. It is not perfect, and we're always looking to improve it. But it avoids two big problems. First, the problems of social security systems in many other countries, especially the advanced countries, which are simply unsustainable. Unsustainable sounds like it's a financial concept. It's not just a financial concept. It is about the big burden that's going to be placed on the next generation. An inequitable burden. Because ordinary working people are going to have to pay more in future for social security, but get less benefits than today. It's as simple as that. They're going to have to pay much more in future, but get less benefits than today. Totally inequitable. We don't have that problem. Second, it is also fair. Because the systems in the rest of the world that are sustainable are systems where each person has to invest on their own. They choose their investments, and unfortunately, in the United States, in Europe and Britain, everywhere where they've tried it, ordinary people are unable to make decent investment returns. They go in at the wrong time, they come out at the wrong time, they lose money, they pay high fees. It's been a real tragedy. I've been studying this for some years. It's a real tragedy to have forced them to take risk in order to earn returns. They end up not earning good returns, but they pay high fees. What we will do, we are using the government budget to add to the savings of ordinary people. Those who are better off, we have to improve the system to help them to take some risk in the CPF system more easily, more conveniently, at low cost. There's a CPF-IS system, but it's a bit unwieldy. There are too many choices. The CPF panel is now studying how we can simplify it and give them easy options to take somewhat more risk, invest long-term in the hope of getting better returns. That way, we have a fair system, but also...
And you just heard there from Deputy Prime Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam on doing more to improve people